This is Christian Staples with Arctic Spas, and we've developed these tutorial videos to help you answer your questions about your Arctic Spa 24 hours a day. This is Christian Staples with Arctic Spas, and today we're going to go over diverters. So diverters are the big bear paws in your tub that control where that water flow goes. So you can move them back and forth and it will switch the direction of the water flow. Sometimes what will happen is that you'll get a little bit of water leaking underneath, or the diverter does sometimes break and you may need to replace it. So that's what we'll go over today. So the first thing that we want to do whenever you're repairing anything is to shut the power off to the spa. And then from there we'll go into the instructions on how to do these diverters based on if your tub is a 2011 and newer or a 2010 and older. The diverters are the big bear paws that are on the tub that control water flow. Now the bear paw could have been a round or a triangle type diverter over the years, but they're basically the bigger handles that control the water flow in the tub. So the first thing that we want to go over is leaking. So sometimes what happens is that the cap underneath will actually get a little bit loose, and water as it's coming up will come out of the diverter and then it leaks back into the tub. Not leaking down in the cabinet, but actually leaking into the inside of the tub. So if your diverter valve is leaking, what you want to do is you want to pull off the handle, which is the bear paw. So you just pull that off and set it off to the side. This cap here is what actually tightens up against the O-ring and stops it from leaking. So if this is loose at all, you can just take and tighten it up by turning it clockwise. This should only be hand tight, so don't use any channel locks or anything like that. If that doesn't stop the leak, then what you want to do is turn it counterclockwise, and we're going to thread it all the way off. And then find the O-ring here. That O-ring should be in good condition, so no breaks in it or anything that would cause it to leak that way. Make sure that it seats down right inside the groove, and then put this cap back on and thread it so it's nice and hand tight, and then you can put the handle back on. Okay, so now sometimes you actually need to replace the diverter, and there's basically the two parts. So you have the body here, and that's embedded into the tub, and it is very, very rare that that would ever need to be replaced, but sometimes the guts of it would need to be replaced. So if you need to replace your whole entire diverter, the first thing you want to do is pull off the cap. We're going to unthread by turning it counterclockwise, this threaded cap, pull out the internal and the O-ring. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take everything and just put it back in with the new stuff that you've purchased. So there's the O-ring, you put that back in. Make sure that on the internal part there's two O-rings that go in here, so make sure that those are slid down into place. Slide that down in, thread the threaded cap back on, just turning it clockwise, and then make sure that it's nice and hand tight, and then put the cap back on and you're good to go. Okay, so now we're going to go over diverters in spas that are 2011 or newer. Okay, so if your tub is a 2011 or newer, you're going to have this diverter valve that has the clear part into it. So if it's leaking, what you want to do is remove the black plastic part of the paw, then take a screwdriver. There'll be a little set screw in here that you'll pull out, and then you can remove the clear part of the handle. Now you're left with the threaded cap, and usually all you have to do is just thread this down, and that will tighten up against that O-ring and stop the leak. So you'll turn that clockwise. Just make sure that it's hand tight. You don't need to use any tools. If that doesn't work, then what you want to do is pull the cap off. So we're going to unthread it by turning it counterclockwise and pulling it out. And then this is the main O-ring here, and so you want to make sure that's in good condition and that it's seated right down inside of that groove. So just make sure that you put it back in there, then put the cap back on, thread it into place by turning it clockwise, put the handle back on, put the screw back in, and then put the black cap back on. Okay, so now sometimes the diverters actually need to be replaced. So if it's broken or something's happened where it needs to be replaced, this is what you'll need to do. So the body here is actually what's embedded into the tub, and that very rarely ever needs to be replaced. So usually you just have to replace the gut. So you're going to take the diverter valve apart by pulling off the black cap. There's the set screw that holds the clear handle in place, so you're going to undo that. Pull off the clear part of the handle. Now this is the threaded cap, so you turn it counterclockwise to thread it all the way out. Pull out the internal piece here, and then replace both of the O-rings. So now you're just left with the body. So now you have all your new stuff here, so that you'll just take and put it all back together in the same way. Put the two O-rings together. These two O-rings need to be added to the internal here. And then put that back down inside. Make sure that O-ring stays in place. And then we're going to thread that cap back down on and turn it clockwise to thread into place. Make sure that it's hand tight. And then put the handle back together with the clear part first. Put the screw in. And then put the black cap back on and we're good to go. So lastly, the one thing you want to do is make sure that the diverter is in the right position. So diverters have a range of 180 degrees, so it can turn all the way left or turn all the way right. And then right in the center, as the bear paw is facing in, should be the middle between the left and the right positions. So what you want to do is when you put it back together, just double check it to make sure that that bear paw is pointing to the left, and then it will stop, and then it will point to the right and stop, and then move it right back to the center. If it is not the case, so I'm going to just push this one into the wrong position here. I can't turn it any more to the left, but the bear paw is facing inward. And I can turn it all the way around to the right, and now it's facing outward. So I know that we just need to make that adjustment. We'll turn it all the way to the left, and then just move the bear paw so it's pointing to the left. And that way you know when it's in the middle position, everything is open, or turn it to the right or to the left, and that bear paw is just in the right position. So it's simply just moving the handle to the position that you need it to be in.